What's going on, y'all? It's David or Dawhveed. So this is actually a video that I've been wanting to do for like a really long time. I want to just kind of share my thoughts and like ramble on about the current state of Flak as a Vault Hunter and kind of go over some things that I would like to see implemented or even just changed to make him, like in my eyes, a better character. I'll sort of be presenting this in a way where I say what I think is a problem with him right now and then present my idea of a solution to fix the problem, or just like a general idea of what I would like to see fixed. I only have a few things that I would like to share and discuss right now, but depending on how well this goes over, there could possibly be like more parts, and I can even branch out to the other characters as well if that's what you guys and girls would like to see. So I guess I'll just jump right into it. The first thing that I want to talk about is how Flak sort of lacks like direct healing. I would like to preface this by saying I do play all four of the current Vault Hunters, and Zane and Amara's direct healing capabilities make Flak's direct healing just feel really bad. Now, when I say direct healing, I do not mean like the HP regen stat. That's what I would consider indirect healing. So I am not talking about rage and recover or like the self-repairing system HP regen stats and so on. When I say direct healing, I mean skills like or whatever where you do something and immediately get a portion of health returned. I think that the only thing on his skill tree that actually does this is the Falconer's Feast augment for his racks. Everything else is just some sort of like HP regen per second buff or what I would consider indirect healing. Now, if you only play Flak, then you probably have come to terms with this and just think that it's like normal, but like I said earlier, I do play all four of the current Vault Hunters, and the difference between the Zane and Amara direct healing and Flak's are like night and day. Even just slotting 1 point into refreshment for Zane or just 1 point into sustainment for Amara, you already have more direct healing than Flak does in his entire skill tree, because you can shoot off like one shot of the Lob or Brainstormer on each of those characters and be back to full HP in no time. Not to mention that like in order to access direct healing from Flak's skill tree, you have to use Rack Attack and you have to use Falconer's Feast as one of your augments. Whereas for Zane, you just have to put 1 point into refreshment. But if you're already running Calm, Cool, and Collected, then you might as well just have 1 point into refreshment anyways. And for Amara, sustainment is in her elemental damage tree where you would normally just spec there anyways. So to start off on solutions, I would like to see just more direct healing basically, because the indirect healing from HP regen per second stats just don't really cut it right now in the endgame, and once the endgame gets harder, which it will, it's just going to get much worse. My idea is that they just change some of the indirect healing in a skill tree to direct healing. So for example, Who Rescued Who, the leftmost tier 2 skill in his blue tree, is a skill where you get HP regen per second when your pet deals damage to an enemy, so an indirect heal for Flak. But for some reason, when you deal damage to an enemy, your pet gets its health restored for a portion of the damage that you deal, which is direct healing. I feel like this skill should either like be flipped or just change from indirect healing when your pet damages enemies to direct healing, meaning that you get health back from a portion of the damage that your pet deals. Not only would this make sense to me and just give Flak more direct healing, I feel like it would make pet builds much more viable, and as someone who's tried hours and hours to make a really like pet focused build, it just doesn't work nearly as well as going like a normal crit Flak, but I'll just save that conversation for another time. Another change that I would like to see from indirect healing to direct healing is the tier 5 skill in his green tree, Rage and Recover. Right now, it just gives Flak HP regen per second for a short amount of time after killing an enemy, but if you compare this to the tier 5 skills of Refreshment and Sustainment from the other characters, this skill really just looks really bad. Not only does this skill provide indirect healing over time instead of direct healing like Sustainment and Refreshment, but it also only goes into effect once you kill an enemy, where the other skills are always active and you just have to damage an enemy. I would at least like to see this skill change to something like the Auto Idol ability, where once you kill an enemy you gain health back, thus giving him more direct healing, because honestly this skill to me just seems really lazy. Lastly, for something that I would like to see implemented for some added direct healing would be a skill that's something simple, like when Flak scores a critical hit, he gets X amount of health restored. Or even like when Flak scores a critical hit, he gets X portion of the damage dealt returned as health. This I feel would really fit his character, and it would be similar to Amara's sustainment ability of elemental damage lifesteal. I have more ideas of like anoints and stuff that would give him more direct healing, but I don't want to stray too far off of what I wanted to cover in this video, so I'll just leave those for like a part 2 or something. So the next thing or like problem that I want to cover for this video is this blue tree Capstone. Now I don't want to go too in depth for this one because I absolutely just like despise this skill, and I already feel like I bored you all to death with the indirect and direct healing stuff. Basically, I just think that this skill is subpar as a capstone to say the least, and I feel like it should at least be like a normal skill on a skill tree for like how incredibly weak it is to make room for a better capstone, or I think that the mechanics of it should just be changed for the better. So I'll just start with the last thing I said, how the mechanics can be changed for the better. Right now, his dominance skill reads, Flak establishes dominance over an enemy, turning it into an ally for a short time. If the enemy is a beast, the duration is doubled. While under the effects of dominance, the enemy constantly loses health until it dies or the effect ends. Only one enemy can be dominated at a time, an enemy can only be dominated once. So those last two lines are what I feel like make this skill just hot garbage, and I think that is what I think the problem area is and I believe should be altered. Thankfully, I think that the fix is like really simple. You just remove either line, but obviously not both because that would be busted. So I think that it should either be more than one enemy can be dominated at a time, but enemies can only be dominated once, or only one enemy can be dominated at a time, but enemies can be dominated more than once. So the former would be good to just like melee an army of enemies and have them fight the other enemies while their health ticks down. Then you can melee the other half of the enemies once their dominance timers are up. This would like not only be cool to see, but it's not exactly like OP or broken since you can only dominate them once. The latter would be cool because you can only dominate one enemy at a time, but you can dominate them repeatedly until they die. So you could use this to like dominate the enemy that keeps getting close to you, or you can dominate the heavy like armored badass enemy repeatedly and have it fight your battles for you with your pet. The dominated enemies don't do like crazy damage, so I don't believe that either of these would be overpowered. Another way this just like horrible capstone can be improved is just add in some extra sauce on it. For example, leaving it how it is, but adding in some text saying, dominated enemies taunt nearby enemies, or dominated enemies deal X amount more damage for the duration that they are dominated, or my favorite idea, dominated enemies have the same buffs as your pet. The former would be really strong, sort of like the Red Fang class mod, but not too strong because it doesn't last nearly as long and the enemy would die pretty fast from the taunt effect. The second one about dominated enemies dealing more damage, this would just simply reward you for dominating the enemy more, and the enemy wouldn't just be like completely useless like this capstone is. And finally, the latter, my favorite option, dominated enemies would have the same buffs as your pet. So for example, if you have ferocity maxed out, your pet and your dominated enemy have 50% bonus damage. These would just make the capstone slightly more enjoyable. Lastly, for the blue capstone, I just want to touch on my idea of just making it like a normal skill on the skill tree and replacing it with a simply better capstone. Now I do like to keep themes in order, so my idea for the new capstone does indeed fit like the master theme and the pet theme for the blue skill tree. So I have two like roughly similar concept ideas for capstones here that I would like to expand on. I worked mostly on the ideas and not so much the names, so don't yell at me in the comments for having bad names for them. The first one is Call of the Wild, and it would read, when Flak issues an attack command, he summons 2 random pets that issue their attack commands alongside your current pet. These pets would stay out for 12 seconds. First off, the numbers here are just completely arbitrary. Like, depending on how they would balance it, it could be however many number of pets for however long. I feel like this would not only look much cooler than the current capstone, but it would introduce a much more like pet-oriented flak that I've been wanting to see for a long time. You could see some insane combos like the Eridian skag come out and generate a singularity to pull the enemies in while the base jabber lobs a radiation barrel at them. Or you could see like the Great Horn Skag charge an enemy and knock them up in the air for the Beefcake Jabber to whack them out of the air for like a home run. This new capstone would also give you more incentive to run like non-meta pets like the Eridian Skag or the Base Jabber just to see those wacky combos. My second idea for the replacement capstone is called Best Friends Forever, and it would read, Flak's action command turns into a second action skill called Nature's Call, and the Nature's Call action skill would read, summon all of Flak's available pets to fight alongside him for 12 seconds. So yes, this does seem a bit stronger than my first suggestion, but the pets would not be using their action skills, they would just be fighting like normal. I forgot to mention for the first one, but for both of my ideas, the extra summon pets would have the same pet bonuses as your current pet. So for this Nature's Call action skill, I do think that it would be a nice addition to Flak, and it would most definitely fit his character. I did include the important part about only summoning available pets, which means it would only summon all of the pets that he can currently choose himself. For example, if you're spec'd all the way into the blue tree for his capstone and all the way into the orange tree for Megavore, then you would summon all 3 Skags, all 3 Spider Ants, and only the base Jabbers since the other Jabbers are not available. Just like the former idea, this one would seem really cool to see and is just miles better than the current dominance. Like I said earlier, I really just want to see like a pet flak build rise in the meta since it's such a big part of his character, and I always enjoy playing like the beastmaster or the summoner type characters in video games, but right now it's just not really worth it. That's actually going to do it for this video. I know that I ranted on there for a bit, but I really just feel like strongly towards some things in this game, and I hope that this video was interesting to at least some of you. I have tons and tons more of what I want to see for this game in the future, especially for flak, like anointments and like changes to even more skills and such. So let me know in the comment section or on Discord if you want to see more of this kind of thing. And as always, make sure to rack attack that thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video, and Gamiverse that subscribe button and notification bell to stay up to date on all of my content. Thank you for watching and listening to me like go on and on about this stuff, and I'll check you all in the next video. See ya!